diabetes.
Oh, yeah, yep,
Oh, that was too much.
yep.
Yeah, man, it's won $4 the lottery too, didn't it?
You won $4?
$4. Then 414.
Okay,
Shit,
sure.
I was Sean.
You can do it all.
That
That New Village Hall Fire Station.
I bought the ticket out in Iowa. I figured if I win big, that way no one knows me out there, you know?
How's your argument?
You guys know we have tomorrow at 5 o'clock, right?
Great dogs, yeah. Anybody coming?
Yes, no objection.
No, nothing yet.
No form?
Now, that doesn't mean somebody might not come up, but it's at our discretion.
Oh, I mean, they show up.
Yeah, because by law, they're supposed to file that, because the assessor needs time, everybody needs time, you know.
To evaluate, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they just link it.
Because it's really not fair to any of us or the assessor. You don't have time to do their research.
Oh, no, yeah.
You have a big agenda.
I don't think the boss is complaining about their conduct, the taxes weren't gonna double. Remember they were in here going, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they can afford it.
A lot of people, it went
Couple
down.
year,
Yeah.
you can turn it in or something.
I didn't
Yeah, we only
know.
sent out 300 letters. We only sent out 300 letters.
They did?
This year was, or 300 to 400 it was.
Yeah.
So,
The ones who went down last year got higher this year.
Yeah, for sure.
What's that?
We're talking about everybody at work in the office last year, so it's kind of the same
Oh.
conversation.
My school is called Spark.
Yeah.
And I'm second in course, $7,500 for thousands.
Well, they just passed that $250 million referendum in Milwaukee. What, and how stupid those people, of course your rent's gonna go out of the landlords aren't gonna eat that. Sean, I thought you were gonna be late.
I texted Brad.
yep, I told you.
You made it by
I thought I
phone.
might be late, but I just made it.
I think Karen put a good word in with our deputy to make sure he wasn't around for it.
Oh, good, yeah. You gotta text me at that point and say, go for it.
Put the big bank caps in, I thought,
Yeah,
Yeah, they're in the revenue somehow.
they were out this afternoon, I gave them,
Were they?
had a car pulled over by the
Mike and Murray, do you guys mind borrowing a microphone? So, we have one in the budget, though. But if people like to hear what you're saying. Hey, what did that one guy in? I think, was it Mario or Mike? I was the guy in the end. Was it Sean?
Chris was running late too, there was some suspicion that you guys might be together.
Confirmed before the meeting?
Yeah.
Sean, does 11 o'clock tomorrow, a Friday
Friday
work?
work for the Castle Road meeting.
Is that, that's not the North one.
yeah.
No.
No, so this new one.
Yeah, and I looked at Norris today.
Yeah.
We can talk after.
And as soon as I find out from this Janelle when they can meet, there's one, she saw Sean last year. You know, she's got a realtor and a developer off of Oakdale. She's only got 12 acres, but they want to come in and meet, which
Okay,
is fine.
that's fine, yeah.
But I kind of want to see what they want to do, what works out here, and then I'm going to have her sign, even though, she said, well, I never got billed. Yes, you got billed and you already paid for it.
Oh.
Because she didn't remember, but she's got cancer.
That's a line
She's related to the show.
Is that the one that wants to one called me up on Oakdale, they want to separate a parcel off for their nephew or something. It's like one of the first farm fields on the east side as you're heading north from,
12 acres?
I think they have 220s. They want to split off 5.
Yeah, no. This
And they're
one
a farming family from Waukesha.
Yeah, this is, you know Shelby, he owned the property in Big Bend, not Kenny King, yeah, Kenny King, next to Kenny King and in between Big Bend Elementary School.
Oh, that vacant parcel?
Yeah, that they filled, they filled a whole bunch of dirt all over.
Oh, it was way before me.
And then, can you shoot it up to the board?
Got up,
Until they,
money, and was like, hey man, you ever heard of this movie?
which is
Look up the director. Yeah. That's a push-pull bill.
We have 1 minute, guys.
I think it's one and the same, but you were.
Anticipation killing.
The Connors are coming. Connors are coming.
On the rear?
Yeah, sure.
Or the one way over?
Fred, did you send that, Oconomowoc, stuff to the Plan Commission?
No.
Guys, you ready?
Water in the ponds?
Fred, are we all hooked up, all ready to go?
Yep.
I'm gonna call the Village of Vernon, Plan Commission and Village Board meeting, to order. Today is September 11th, 2024. I'm asking everyone to please rise to the pledge of allegiance of the flag and a moment of silence. And with this, special day, if we all could, remember the thousands of people that died on 9/11 and the millions that were affected by it. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Fred, would you mind doing a long open meeting compliance and roll call so we can wait for Chris to get here?
Sure. President Chu,
I'm here.
Trustee Pecca,
Here.
Trustee Finch,
Here.
Trustee Newman,
Here.
Trustee Millies,
Here.
Commissioner Noack,
Here.
Commissioner Rinaldi,
Here.
Commissioner Alex.
Here.
Player Malarkey is also here, and this meeting was noticed and posted according to law.
And we'll note for the record that you have full quorum of the Village Board and Plan Commission. The first agenda item we have is public notice that we reconvene to today's date. I'm just going to go ahead and read the public notice one more time, even though we read it before. And then, did you get any text from Chris yet, Doug? Or? Okay.
I'll try them again while you're reading.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing by the Village Board and Plan Commission will be held on Wednesday, October 14th at 6 p.m. at the Village Hall at W249 South 8910 Center Drive to consider the request for the applicant, Doug Anderson, doing business as Miller Pipeline LLC for the property owned by Miller Pipeline located at South 74 West 24255 National Avenue, Mugwanago, Wisconsin. The property is identified tax key number 2053997-003 for the issuance of a conditional use permit to allow contractor yard per section 322(b)(4) of the Village of Vernon ordinance. And as I stated before, the Plan Commission and Village Board made separate motions to adjourn this meeting to today's date at 6 o'clock. Sean, you want to do like a little brief overview while we're waiting for Chris?
Yeah, I can just do a recap. I'll spend 3 or 4 minutes here. Essentially, the contractor's yard and business, Hydro Excavators, has been there since 2021. They're in for an expansion. We talked about it last month. The reason the public hearing was adjourned to this month is to get more information for them to complete their civil plans, which have been updated based on that, and to supply a lighting plan, which was not supplied last time, and to answer a number of questions. We did have a number of questions. I did, the Plan Commission Board did, that were answered during the meeting, but I'll just quickly go through my updated staff report to address some of the things that were sort of outstanding. One of the things was the asphalt millings. Some of the drawings talked about crushed stone. The civil plans showed it as crushed stone. The civil plans have been updated to show them as asphalt millings, so that's been taken care of. I wanted to get an accurate account also in terms of the impervious surface of the site. It's limited to 65%, so buildings and pavement and everything else is the limit 65%. I wanted to make sure, based on the attorney's comments, that if that driveway is submitted or changed in the future, added in the future, that wouldn't put us over the top, and so it doesn't, even with the driveway. The future driveway to National Avenue would still only be 58%, We asked them to show the refuse containers on the site plans that's been added to the south side of the existing building. A couple comments about landscaping. Fred, do you mind switching over to me?
Sure.
So here's just the general overall site plan. This isn't the landscape plan, and a lot of, if I look at the aerial photograph here, it kind of tells the picture. There's a significant landscaping on the south side. The existing building here is on the west side. There's some existing landscaping here. A lot of the proposed landscaping is going to be out front, in front of the stormwater ponds, even behind the ponds. There's even landscaping on the east edge. The only property line where there isn't necessarily landscaping is adjacent to another contractor yard, which is D&J and Sons. They're not proposing any landscaping. There's an existing fence that exists there. So I'm not necessarily saying they need to have landscaping there, but it's something the Plan Commission might want to consider, something we might want to discuss. And then finally, the last thing about landscaping is that their plan meets all the landscaping requirements from a point standpoint, except there's only one place it doesn't. And let me pull up the plans. Essentially, this area out in front, we require a certain number of points for building foundation landscaping, and the plan shows a couple of trees at either end. So they're providing 20 points of landscaping, but 40 points are required. So I'm saying essentially a little more landscaping along the front of the building is required to meet the conditions of the ordinance. Another thing that was talked about last time is this potential berm at the southeast corner of the property. And essentially there's a gap in the existing vegetation here from the freeway that you'd be able to see into the site, see into the buildings. That was on there. We talked about last time is a potential suggestion. The updated landscape plans and civil plans don't include that. So at this point in time, the plans aren't showing that in terms of landscaping. So that's, again, something we should discuss as to whether or not it's required. Again, they have enough points besides the building foundation for the landscaping plan, but whether or not this berm is required and whether or not additional landscaping is required between the other contractor yard, that was up for discussion. I had questions about the wetlands on the property. Last time we talked, I mentioned that there's, the county GIS site based on DNR mapping shows a wetlands on the property. They had a report done, a wetlands delineation report from a Assured Delineator that essentially found 3 potential wetlands on the site. And they looked at it and they deemed them to be artificial wetlands. They've since submitted that to the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers and have received confirmation that they're artificial wetlands. And so those aren't subject to the same jurisdictional requirements, and so those could be filled and graded with no issue.
And Sean, excuse me, when you say artificial, does that mean somebody actually, like...
That means they were caused by part of stormwater planning over the years, or, it's just, they're not natural wetlands that developed over time. The one question from the village engineer that we had, he just had a couple comments about the grading looks fine, that, specific attention has to be paid between the stormwater ponds between the D&J and Sons site and their site, but that's a county issue. He has a question about the septic field. I don't remember if we talked about this last time. Is this just all a holding tank? Is that all it is? Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's a matter of semantics on the note from the utility plan. It probably should say holding tank instead of septic tank.
Sure.
So there's just
there's no septic field. We're not disturbing any septic field.
It ends in the tank in the rectangle. Right. So it's probably a revision of the note.
Yeah, if the note could be updated.
So people can hear what you're saying.
That would make a lot of sense. So I'll turn it back over to the Plan Commission and Board in a second. I just want to say that, there's a series of conditions here in my staff report if this is going to be approved. A couple of the conditions have to be satisfied before we would issue any permits. One of which has fire chief has to be, I don't know if that's happened yet or not, but that will be a requirement before we issue final zoning and building permits. Waukesha County needs to approve the stormwater management and plan and maintenance agreement prior to zoning permits and building permits. We will need approval from the county as well on the holding tank as to whether or not that's going to be okay. And then I had a comment in here about approval for, the permits for the artificial wetlands, but those are already been obtained, or letters stating that the artificial wetlands have been obtained. And finally, that's not in my list of conditions that the village attorney asked to add, was that the conditions be subject to legal review for conditional use and site plan of operation.
Isn't that all, that's,
It's always something we do for CUs, but I'm just gonna specifically add the conditions here. It's not included in my staff report.
oh, okay. Because I just wondered why he brought that up, that,
Yeah.
he said due to the significance of the CU permit, and they're all significant.
Well, every time there's a CU, we normally sign that. That's right. But I think he saw that it wasn't listed in
I
the
see.
comments, and that's
I
why he
see.
added it. So all of my questions have been satisfied. Again, outside of the landscaping in front of the building has to be bolstered an extra 20 points, and the questions as to whether or not there needs to be a berm and landscaping here and landscaping south of D&J and so on. So that's all I have for comments.
So Chris, what Sean did is an overview of the additional information that we received, that we were kind of waiting for that information. Chris, did you want to add anything before?
Yeah, the one thing is, I think that our grading plan and potentially the landscape plan does reflect that berm in that corner.
No, they
That's
don't.
not the one, it'd be a civil engineering drawing.
Yeah.
Or C4.
C4, I think, does address something, because we did have an internal conversation about trying to create that.
So here's C4.
And
Yeah,
if you can read those grades, you're.
those contours are there. It goes, you can see where it goes up to 937 in the corner there. That's.
Oh, so this is the
Yeah,
berm
that's
here.
the berm
It's
there.
actually-
I got you. So, okay, so let's look at the landscape plan.
The landscape doesn't show any like shrubs or plantings there, but, you know,
There's a lot of shrubs there now.
yeah, so it's.
Well, not in this location, there isn't.
Yeah.
You know, if it makes sense, we could relocate a few to
Well,
that.
but if they grade it, there's gonna be nothing there, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
So-
I didn't, okay.
Is that higher or lower than the freeway?
It's lower.
So the freeway looks down onto the
Yeah,
site.
so no matter what size berm you put there, you're still gonna see over the top of it.
Right, but you can at least screen something from the road, some type of evergreen or something with the berm to help lift the height. That was the point, and, so that would be location of berm, but the landscape plan doesn't show anything in terms of, what might be there. Is there-
Yeah, I don't know if we can chat with Doug about it, but it's more a matter of screening, or is it more a matter of, signage or promotion for the site itself? That's all, I don't know.
Well, if it's for signage, I mean, that's another story, we're not talking about signage tonight, obviously, but, that would be something you'd come back and ask for, or a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which might be nice, right? If there's signage that's put out there, that there's some landscaping kind of anchors it there.
Sure.
I don't know if it's a deal breaker either way for the planning commission or board.
I actually think the sight line from the freeway to do signage would be, we'd have to clean up some of the freeway, the interstate property, which,
Yeah.
anyway.
It's a quick pass. Yeah, 70.
I know. At the fire department, we had a meeting scheduled with them tomorrow. Unfortunately, I had something come up, I had to cancel. We're looking to schedule something, I gave him dates Friday and some dates next week, so that's out there too.
Okay.
Alex and I have been talking. He's aware of the development, and he must have seen something at this point.
I showed him. Hope you don't mind.
No, I,
I like to keep him informed.
it's all about.
Anything else, Chris or Sean? Then I'd like to turn it over to Plan Commission and Board if they have any questions. Plan Commission or Board members, do you have any questions? Commissioner Nowak?
Does the fire chief get a copy of these plans ahead of the meeting here?
Right, yep. And any updated plans?
Is there any way we can set up a practice of getting his report so that we can review it?
Yeah, that would be helpful, and obviously it's been part of the
We
staff
can put it on
report.
as a condition, but if he says, oh, geez, I can't get a truck around.
Then they gotta
that
come
corner,
back.
We gotta change the layout here.
They have to come back.
And they gotta come back again.
He just texted me before the meeting, so I'll send him another text and say, okay. Other questions or conditions, concerns?
As far as that berm there, I could care less if there is one or isn't one. I mean, I'm not too worried about the view from the freeway, what they're seeing. And also on the proposed landscaping, the planting screen have at least 10 feet high, initial height. That's kind of push, I mean, it's putting in some big trees right away, and it's hard to keep them watered. I'd rather see, you know, the smaller 4 to 6 foot trees go in, you know, where you have a better chance of survival. And they're gonna eventually grow to over 10 feet, but.
So they are proposing 10-foot height trees, so you're saying, and some 5-foot height trees, and one of the things about that condition, it allows you to, it's flexible, right? That, unless it's amended by the planning commission.
Big type of spruce or pines, you know, getting that size, I mean, it's
Sure.
a good shock to them. And they're expensive.
Yeah.
Trustee Pecca?
No, the only thing, when I say this is nothing you guys do. The only thing I can honestly say is like if one of your big trucks is waiting, you know, for oncoming traffic or whatever. The only thing I worry about is no matter how much education you can throw at people, you know, people are always distracted in the cab, in their cars and things. The only thing I just always worry about is a rear end collision, you know, while they're waiting, you know.
Yes, that's true. You can't make a road accident proof.
That was my only comment about the trees around the corner there, is keep it clear so that there's a nice line of sight.
This corner here,
Yeah, the left side.
the left.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's accurately.
I don't- yeah.
Yeah, let's take a look at
It's
the,
not, all it is sumac and it's junk.
and those are Karen's trees.
Yeah, it's fine. So don't think,
We're gonna cut the trees down, Karen.
That's-
You guys table that one.
I was just making sure there wasn't like intentions to put more in there.
No.
No, but-
I suppose there's a.
but there
turnoff
is, if you have a
now,
little
isn't there?
car, it isn't hard for the big trucks because they're up so high.
That's-
But sometimes that sumac can get, it grows like a weed in there, it's just
Especially
trash.
this year. They did come out and trim it a couple times.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Other comments or concerns, questions?
Is that an existing holding tank you're gonna be using, or are you adding another? We're adding another one.
Yeah, it's an additional thing.
Which drawing is the tank with the?
C5, yeah. The east side of the building.
You said of the new building?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It'll be on the- there you go.
There it is.
You guys don't put when you wash the trucks, it doesn't go into that, does it? How often do you have it pumped? I mean, not this one, the one that you have, Doug?
Not as much as you'd think. We do a lot of truck washing off-site, but,
Oh,
so it really isn't that much.
oh, okay. So I thought, man,
A couple, 3, 4 times a year.
oh, that's not bad. I think McDonald's does it every week. Other conditions, questions? Well, if everybody, oh, I'm sorry, is there anybody from the public that would like to make comments or? Okay, so I'll just note for the record that there's no public comments in Plan Commission Village Board. You're good? Brad, you good? Well, I'm going to close the public hearing and then we'll go to item number 6. This is Village Plan Commission's recommendation and Village Board. It's action from the Plan Commission and then possible action from the Village Board. Is there, before we do make a motion, Sean, do we have to take out 4D then? Because it's not relevant?
4D,
4D is a DNR.
it can remain because
Okay.
it still
It's done.
applies either way.
Okay. And then I'll make sure that you see Alex's memo on his review. Is that good with, because, I mean, it's in there as a condition.
It's a condition that he needs to review
But
that.
I'll just make sure that Alex knows that you want something in writing. And then for everything coming forward, we'll have Alex or one of his staff members. It's usually Alex or Patrick that do those delineations. They usually like to do it together when they're asked, so just so you know how the fire department runs. So is there a motion from the Plan Commission? This would be, if you're inclined, it is Sean's recommendation, dated today's date with 16 conditions contingent on legal review as all.
One more concern, Karen, of that future driveway, hopefully it goes in, John had mentioned something in his report that we approve that or do something that they wouldn't have to come back in future for that?
Yeah, so there is a condition written that essentially allows that to happen with just site plan amendment, doesn't require a conditional use amendment in public hearing.
So they would bring their site plan back, but they wouldn't have a,
It's condition 5.
okay. Is that okay with you, Dan? So is there a motion from the plan commission to make a recommendation to the village board?
So move for approval?
And all the conditions 1 through 16 contingent on legal review?
Correct.
And that was a second by Commissioner Rinaldi. Is there a discussion from the plan commission? Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Is there a motion of concurrence from the plan commission's conditions with the 16 conditions conditioned on legal review? That motion was made by trustee Finch. Is there a second to the motion? Second by trustee Dillon. Excuse me, trustee Newman. Oops. Discussion from the board. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good luck,
Thank
man.
you.
You're on a mission. Thanks, guys. Our next agenda item is a public hearing notice that Brad did notice. I'm going to read the notice and explain what we're going to do with this one. This is, thanks, guys. A notice is hereby given that a public hearing by the village board and plan commission will be held at the Vernon Town Hall on September 11th at 6 p.m. at W249 South 8910 Center Drive to consider a request for Dave Hoffman for the property owned by Rick and Marlene Rinderly, located at South 82 West 26380 National Avenue in the village of Vernon. Property tax key number VNT 2081987001 for the issuance of conditional use permit for a landscaping business per section 322-(b)(9) of the village of Vernon ordinance. As I stated, Brad did the proper notice, but forgot to send notification to the property owners within 500 feet. So the request is that we would adjourn this to the 19th at 5:30. Is that the right time?
Yes.
So we just adjourn this public hearing to September 19th at 5:30. Is there a motion from the Plan Commission?
So moved.
That was Commissioner Nowak, and is there a second from the Plan Commission? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was Commissioner Trustee Millies. Is there a second to Trustee Millies' motion? I'll second the motion. Discussion from the Plan Commission. Sean, is there anything we need to add while we're doing these motions of reconvening?
I don't think.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Village Board, is there a motion to concur with the Plan Commission reconvening this public hearing? That was by Trustee Newman, second by Trustee Finch. Discussion, gentlemen. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So just so the public knows, everything was done correctly. Just want to make sure all those people within 500 feet get notification. So this public hearing will be next Thursday at 5:30. So then we're on to conceptual amendments to the village zoning code, specifically related to accessory dwelling units, allowing a second resident on a lot, and setting a date for the public hearing. Sean, you want to just give a brief recap of that?
We've talked about this at least 2, maybe 3 times, I think now. Last time was at the village board staff meeting where the Plan Commission was invited to attend. The village attorney also sat in, and we had a fairly lengthy discussion on accessory dwelling units, both attached and detached. As you recall, in your packets is sort of my draft ordinance on this. If we go forward with some of the best conditions that I could find from a number of different locations. Since the meeting, I know Mike Alex also submitted some additional information that is in the packets, correct?
Oh, I don't think it was. I'll email it out.
Okay. Mike, you submitted an example from the town of Cedarburg for their ordinance, which is not called accessory dwelling units, but secondary dwelling units, how they phrase it. I took a look at some of the conditions that are in that. I have a couple notes on that. I think they They have a few other conditions that we don't have currently drafted, but we can get into that. And the other thing you found was some legal opinions on a couple of things, and I guess I'll let you summarize and speak to that. But we brought it back after the last village board staff meeting to sort of finalize the direction for this, whether it goes on to public hearing or not. So that's a refresher.
Mike, do you mind sharing with the Plan Commission, and I'll ask Brad to make sure that he sends it out to the Plan Commission. Also the Oconomowoc article, City of Oconomowoc, if he could share that with, not that it's as detailed as Mike's, but Mike, you just want to elaborate?
Yeah, so this was a legal opinion, I think the League of Municipalities, so giving kind of a legal background to kind of where things are at. I think this is from 2021, or 2020, April of 2020. It addresses a lot of things that we've been talking about, the concerns, the trends, where things are at. Couple things to pull from this, and I guess I would start it by saying this. After our last meeting with the attorney, the thought was owner occupancy isn't an option. To me, that's kind of a deal killer. But the precedent seems to be there that allowing owner occupancy, it's not some, civil liberties case that's going to be brought against us. It's been brought to Utah. They kind of showed the precedent. I think it all goes back to like everything else, proper drafting of the language. To give the reason why you're creating this owner occupancy requirement is to retain the residential nature of the property. So it's not going to become a multifamily or some type of property management concern. So that's one of the big things from legal. Again, that was in April of 2020. And I don't know if Brad passed along another really good one because the comment was, well, maybe this is more towards urban developments, Madison's, Milwaukee's. Dunn County did a pretty extensive report that again I can share, Brad can share with everybody, that just was published in January of 2024, addressing all those same items that we've been talking about, going back and forth on them. The one thing I want to point out, Dunn County is just outside of Eau Claire, so it's a rural kind of community. Some of the other things that they're talking about is preserving farmland, kind of saying, hey, we want to make sure that we're creating protections so that we can increase density, but do it in a smart way. It also addresses that same owner occupancy requirement language. A couple of other notes talking about the trends and again the requirements that they have, talking about living areas. Some municipalities allow multiple properties, some allow as small as 400 square feet. They call them a junior accessory dwelling unit. Again, just some things for all of us to kind of consider on that. The other thing that I really liked about the owner occupancy requirement is that they were talking about adding a length of time that you have to be there. I think Jeff Milley brought up, well, hey, maybe right now I live in the house and I want a family member or someone else to live in the smaller house. But maybe I'm an empty nester now, so all I need is the smaller unit. So I want my family to move into the big unit. So you can live in the accessory or the primary or principal, property. I think that's a good option to say at least the owner has to be one of those two. And then it also added that there's a day requirement, at least 120 days of the year, that you're not just a name on paper that says that you live there, but you have to have residency for 120 days. Again, that's an enforcement type of thing, but if it's something that we write into there, it can show that intent to say, to give us that leeway to say you're not following these, they have the burden to say that their residency was there for 120 days. So again, I can share that with everybody.
And Sean, you reviewed what Mike...
Yeah, I certainly did, and I just want to say, I mean, it all looks good, sounds good, and that's the same things I would have said and looked to as well. And we were talking about restrictions and occupancy restrictions and other restrictions, and so those were on the table until Attorney Macy essentially said that no, it's not. You can't regulate the ownership of a unit. You can't require that the owner live there or not live there. And so I don't know how to answer that question. It's a legal matter, and I'm not sure how much Utah's laws apply to the states. If it didn't go to the Supreme Court of the United States, then maybe we don't know the answer to that question yet. Yeah, because our laws are, Wisconsin's laws are certainly different than Utah's laws.
What happens to properties in a trust? How do you know who the owner is?
Well, there's always an owner of the trust.
someone's always gonna be named as part of the trust, but,
You know,
Well,
you know, who that all
yeah, but
incorporates.
part of the problem is that who's checking, you know, who's verifying all this stuff? Who's verifying who owns there, who lives there, and who doesn't live there, are you related or not related? I mean, that's, nobody's gonna do that.
Yeah, Jeff's point is good, there's a lot of trust that you wouldn't know who it is. I mean, it's in the document, but, you know, the document of the trust, but, you know, the title, you can look at a lot of tax bills in Waukesha County and would have no idea that that's my last name, because it wouldn't, you can name a trust whatever you want to name it.
Well, if you look at our last conditional use, it was DBA Miller Pipeline.
Mhm.
So it was in a person's name that the conditional use is taken. So the conditional use process would require that, right? So that would be the verification, right? So we would have specific conditions in a conditional use that say you have to be an owner occupant. Who is that owner occupant? You're the person signing the conditional use permit. I think that.
Well, the way the conditional use permit was written, at least this one, and I've been, trying to do this, is that the approval is for Doug Anderson, for instance, doing business, but the actual user, it's limited to Miller Pipeline LLC. So if the ownership might change, it's still be Miller Pipeline.
For the owner occupant, I say this from a bed and breakfast conditional use, as a conditional use holder for bed and breakfast
Right.
and event barn, it's in our personal names. It's in your personal name if there's an owner occupancy requirement, and I think that.
Yes, that's right. And when we looked at your conditional use and we did that, I mean, those were the things, we were operating under the premise that was legal to do. And so,
Yeah, and speaking to, so the legal review that we had, that's from attorneys in the state of Wisconsin. So that's the April 2020. That's James Colney is a shareholder with Davis Colney SC with 40 years of experience in municipal law and began his career in Green Bay. So, so.
Right, but the Village of Vernon attorney is saying something different. So I guess we're at odds here. In terms
And the
of-
same village attorney who said that owner occupancy requirement is not constitutional and stated it with the last, conditional use within the last 3 years. So has the stance changed? You know what I mean?
I can't answer the question.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that he's wrong. They can have an opinion, attorneys have an opinion, and a lot of times it's, well, we don't know until it gets taken to that level.
Right.
And that's why they cite the Utah precedent to say, this is a similar case. The Utah precedent was talking about owner occupancy, someone that just, as a landlord, is trying to do that.
Yeah, no, perfect. And I agree. I would like to be able to say the owner has to live in one of the 2 units. That makes perfect sense, right? It makes perfect sense here. I don't feel it's appropriate to put restrictions on the accessory unit to say it's got to be family members, or it's got to be this person, or it's got to be. That's impossible to enforce. I think that's a lost cause.
Yeah.
So I agree, Mike. I agree in principle. That's how it should be. But if we can't do it, or the board, if the board is deferring to the attorney's opinion, then that's the way we go.
It would be nice to ask the league, because you said this was, it was cited in a league article, Mike? It wasn't one of the league attorneys, was it?
No.
Attorneys Abby Bustler and James Colney.
Yeah.
It's a legal issue, so I
Right,
mean, we
yeah.
have to, I guess we need a follow-up from Attorney Macy on those, on what Mike has found and whether or not it's applicable.
Further discussion, any questions from the,
If we put it in there, one unit's gotta be owner occupied. And if somebody all of a sudden wants to sue us at some future date.
You'd have to take it out.
Then we can take it out at that time.
That's right.
oh, that's good.
I'm saying, so
Attorney
what our
fills them
intention
up front.
is,
Attorney fills them up front, but if they want to sue, so throw it out.
yeah.
Well, are you saying you just back away the first person that sues, or would you go to court and litigate it?
Or give it to our insurance company.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, but I mean, there's a cost to that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as there's a cost, it's okay,
Well, yeah.
I can't believe this didn't come up. I can't, well, I don't know, we don't have access to the Towns Association, but you would think this, without all this happening with the state of Wisconsin, you'd think the league would have some information.
especially with the shared driveway and stuff, it's kind of like,
Yeah,
Well, there are properties that are separate properties with shared driveways as well. I mean, that's not uncommon.
And enforcement wise, in reality, I mean, it wouldn't matter that much until there's an issue.
Right. That doesn't make it right.
No, but.
I mean, it's like letting people across the border. You know.
Now, Dan, we have.
I guess, I would be.
Talk about Illinois.
I would be interested to just, we've talked about this a number of times now. And some of the, all the conditions, or a lot of the conditions that are in here, I think are really good. Mike had some other examples from Cedarburg as well that talked about a few other things, like they talk about limiting the number of people that would be in the accessory unit. They limit it to 1 story. They require a separation distance of 20 feet from the house and the accessory unit. Ours is just 10 foot. Our 10 foot is our blanket, one building to the building. I'm not sure that matters. No separate meters, so they have to be in the same utilities, which is, something we can consider. And then they also had covenants in theirs that talk about, they prohibit rental of either unit, which, again, that goes back to the question, is that legal? And it's certainly, I don't think, legal to prohibit rental based on the short-term rental laws of the state. We've already talked about that. You can't prohibit it. If it's a residential unit, it's pretty clear. It can be rented as part of the short-term rental, so that may not be legal. So those are just a couple of different things that we saw, but I think we have, we have a pretty good list of conditions. I added Dan's condition in there about the, the single driveway as well. So what's the sentiment? Attached, detached?
Limiting the number of people.
Sure, okay, but I guess my question is the sentiment of yay or nay, assuming the conditions can be massaged, yay or nay on attached, detached, accessory dwelling units?
I'm in favor of it.
I'm in favor of it as long as we can have some conditions attached to it.
Sounds like an enforcement nightmare. According to John, we can't prevent them from renting them out, both of them.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Someone lives in the house and they own it, and they want, and their mother lives there, and they all move out, and he rents the house, and he wants someone else to rent the other thing. I mean, we have to get pretty serious on enforcing stuff, right?
Who's gonna enforce it?
Right?
Who enforces our current conditional uses?
Well, if someone calls and complains, it's it's the building inspector, but we all get involved and look at the conditions.
How many mother-in-law units do we have right now, Karen?
Well, that's what, I didn't look that all up.
Do we know what's happening with them?
We haven't had any complaints.
Are they being rented out?
I
We
don't
don't
know.
Are they returned to a one-family unit?
There is one current auxiliary dwelling unit that we have that is, I know they regularly rent out off of Hartwick Court,
And then I don't know the status of the one on Edgewood.
and the status of the in-law,
Does the one on
attached.
Hartwick Court, do they actually have a conditional use for that?
I think that one's been grandfathered in, is what.
It's probably
Denny's-
so old.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for years.
Edgewood isn't. That's after 1959.
I don't see a lot of people rushing out to do this.
We have provisions for mother-in-law units now. Correct?
We do, attached, yes, that have to be converted back, and the language restricts it to family, whether that's enforceable.
Is the concern enforcement of it's being used as a two-family property, or that they're abusing the, creating noise or being a nuisance? Which of those is the concern? Because if the concern is that they're following the letter of the law of the conditional use, I would say we have a laundry list of conditional uses that could get in line for that. But if the question is, if it becomes a problem that they're too loud, or that they're obnoxious, or that they're doing something wrong that's impacting other people, we have remedies for that within our code, no matter if it's a single family or multi. So which line of those is the concern?
I think Vince's requests are more for the detached than they are the attached. I think he said he had, at least 11 requests.
That people have come forward asking
Right.
to do a detached.
Convert their detached garage. I mean, he had a lot of requests for.
Right.
So we kind of have to know to do when Brad does the public, if we decide to go to public hearing, kind of have to know what the consensus of the commission and board is.
The next step is decide to go to public hearing or not.
Right.
That's what Sean's asking us, what President Schiff
And whether or
said.
not additional legal review was required based on Mike's findings or not, and whether that condition gets put in for owner occupancy.
I don't see the demand, and I don't see, any way to enforce it. That would be a me.
But for a public hearing, you're talking about putting up a draft set of conditions and getting response, review, whatever.
Yeah, potentially from the public, whether anyone attends or not
I
is.
think we're ready for that, certainly. The other comment I was gonna make is that, I know, just speaking for myself, the more practical constraints we'd be able to apply, the more comfortable I would be with it. The more open-ended it is, the more uncomfortable I would be.
Mhm.
And I don't know, if anybody came up with any type of definitive, terms or conditions that, you know, would make you feel comfortable. I'm not really sure.
So, yeah, what is the, for instance, Mario, I mean, you've seen my draft of conditions. Is the ownership one the sticking point, or what is not addressed in the conditions that I've drafted that would make you feel more comfortable?
Well, I'm uncomfortable about this legal tussle, for one. It's not a comfortable situation to question your legal advisor. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, I'm just saying
Right.
it's not a comfortable situation. I don't feel, I wish I was more aware of what the demand really was, where the interest really was, and to see if we could practically meet that interest. I don't know if we were to, somewhat one eye closed, map out a path, and then see what happens. I kind of have that feeling of that's our situation right now. I don't have many years here to, we don't talk about this too often.
That's what we brought Vincent to get his feedback on, what he deals with.
What the demand was. What he
Right,
thought the
because
demand was.
obviously none of us would hear that. He's gonna hear it as the building inspector on what people want to do. I just know of people that have gone to him.
Yeah, like a few a year, basically, is
Right.
is what it boils down to. When people ask to do that.
I can say I probably had 2 or 3 since I've been here, with Mr. Provencher being one of them, and a couple other people that are called, and not including the Connors, but, I think 2 or 3 I've had since I've been here.
And the only ones that we've ever dealt with were connected to the home.
The Provencher example is a little different.
Yeah,
because
that's a little
the existing dwelling, he wanted to build a new one. That one would have been way too large anyways as a secondary accessory dwelling.
Well, we could just wait until it actually comes up as an issue.
Well, we do have, the Connors are the one that started the whole thing, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, they brought the issue forward months ago and basically said, hey, they proposed some language, I finessed it, we've talked about it, so, yeah, they want to build a detached accessory dwelling in it, and so that's why we started talking about it.
Okay. I was wondering where it all
There it is.
started.
So we know where Mario and Dan are standing. I know where Dylan and Jeff are standing. Jay or Gary or Mike, do you have any preference? I'd love to hear what the public has to say
I would too.
before shooting it down. I mean, it's nice that we have our input, and I really think we could probably get some more legal information prior to a public hearing, but I'd really like, because it's one thing when we talk here, but then when you invite the public, sometimes you get a whole different perspective on what we're thinking.
Do you think there might be a turnout for this?
I don't know. I mean, look at the turnout. Thank God the Connors are here. And I don't know.
Well, if we put some of the language restricting the number of people per unit, is like usually based by bedroom.
So they talk, like Cedarburg's example talks about 4 family members or less in the accessory dwelling unit. So
Typically, yeah, per bedroom, and 2 is your max occupancy, whether it's rental or.
That's how we currently have it, right? It's up to 2 bedrooms. 1 bedroom is up to 800 square feet, and the 2 bedrooms up to 1,200 square feet. It's the way we have it right now.
Yeah, 2 people per bedroom, so max. Which, I think it'd be good to state that in there.
Sure, we could do that.
I don't think you can enforce that.
No, I don't know how you.
No, but you have that stuff in there, all of a sudden you do have problems.
How many
I don't think it would be legal.
I mean, technically, every public building has an occupancy, doesn't it?
Yes.
Mhm.
No, this is not a public building.
Maximum occupancy is 2 per bedroom. The building code, so you could have 12 people stay in a 1-room house, and you could say, well, we have an enforcement issue, but yeah, you're gonna have it no matter what. I mean, in one breath, we're saying, well, we don't get many of these, and another, we're saying, we have somebody who petitioned to have it. 2 to 3 a year, or 3 or 4 a year, I think that's kind of saying that there might be a demand for it.
We get something in, I know Vince, I know he gets.
Yeah,
this is
this,
like 2 a
for
year.
sure,
He gets-
for sure.
No, just because there's a demand doesn't mean that we're the community that wants that.
Well, I think, did Oconomowoc go to public hearing on? I know there was an article. The city of Oconomowoc, not the
I think-
town.
You probably have a lot of boathouses and stuff, or guest houses from years ago.
Well, in the
And that's what was
article,
grandfathered in, and now the people that want to have a similar living situation are saying, well, why are these people that had it built beforehand grandfathered in under, well, it was there, if it seems like, oh, that seems to work out well. I guess if somebody had 50 acres and they said, I want to do a detached accessory dwelling unit, is that a concern, or is it, hey, when we get down to 2 acres, 3, this says 3 acres,
3, yeah.
is it 5 acres, is it 10 acres? Like, if I have 1,000 acres, is that enough buffer zone from everyone else? And now we have to like keep stepping it down. Is it, right now it's 3, are you more comfortable if it's 5? Does that get it outside of the subdivision? Like, I'm still trying to find why that would be a concern. If we're already saying not in a platted subdivision or in a subdivision, and it's at least 3 acres.
It may be right next to a platted subdivision, that 3-acre parcel.
Correct. So if that was a 5-acre parcel next to a platted subdivision, would that be enough? Or if it was a 20 or 50? Because we still have the same setback.
right. Is
If we
it,
put it where, you know, the setback can't be any closer than the principal structure, maybe that's something to say, hey, now our accessory dwelling unit is farther away from the property line than the principal dwelling unit, or the principal structure.
It can't be from every property line, though. Can't be further away from every property
No,
line.
correct, the nearest property line, so the closest setback. I'm trying to solve a problem of someone who says, well, if it's my neighbor, I'm not gonna like it.
Right.
I think the fact that it's not in a platted subdivision is extremely helpful.
Yeah, these aren't gonna occur everywhere, for sure.
And we recognize that, you know, we're not right next to a college, we're not right next to a lake, we're not in the middle of, you know, the Dells or something. So,
Well, and every one I've ever heard since I've been here was to house their parents. Every single one was, they want to take care of their parents, they don't want to put them in a nursing home, they want them close by, but giving them independence. And I know the Plan Commission always exemplified the kids coming forward because we're all old. They wanted to come in.
Yeah, that's
how we're started, but what happens after the
Right.
break? You know, that's what.
Right.
It's gonna transition to something else, and that you have to accept that. You have to
And
accept
we have to
that.
have enough restrictions and language in there where it's not gonna get out of hand. Which I think we do.
One other restriction that is in there, but it's kind of baked into it, is we're all on septic systems, right? So most septic systems are designed to fit what the house that's existing is. If you're adding another unit, you're tying into an existing septic system, that's a pretty significant investment that you're gonna be making in it. That it's not just going to be, oh, hey, this is a little shack that we're gonna, you know, be able to convert, or we're gonna build something that's not, you know, worthwhile. Same thing with if you're gonna rent it out, that there's a significant investment that would go into it, where you're gonna have a lot of skin in the game to make sure that it's a good property and that it's maintained, and especially if you're living there. That's the other thing. If you're living on the property, I think that's a good use of, increasing the density of our, village, increasing the value of property in the village, and increasing the marketability. If you are a neighboring community, or in a neighboring community, and you say, hey, I can go there, and we can buy that land, we can build our dream house, and mom can build hers on, part of it, I think that's a huge selling point. I think Vernon then becomes somewhere to go, we're accessible, and they have low taxes still. Sounds like a win-win, but I don't know.
Jay, do you have any comments, or?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's becoming a thing of the future, because a lot of people don't want to put their parents in this.
So, should we at least take it to public hearing? Just because you take something to public hearing doesn't mean you're gonna.
Do anything with it.
Right. I sure would like to hear what the public has
Just get
to
some
say.
feedback, yeah.
I think
I'd like to hear.
Do we take it to public hearing, because there's got to be language, specific language.
Right.
I guess the question is, what's the language about owner occupancy? Do we leave that in and then ask the attorney's comments about it before it gets to public hearing?
I think we should leave it in.
Yeah.
And if it's not legal, we can always make
We
that.
can always change it if we
Right.
notice it.
I think owner occupancy is important.
Okay. And we'll be sure to ask him to review what Mike supplied before the meeting, so we can have his comments, and if we have to strike it, or whatever we do with it.
Dan, you want any comments from the fire department? Dan, it's just public hearing. You want any opinion from the building inspector and the fire chief?
Never hurts.
Well, is there a motion from the plan commission to have staff set the public hearing for October 10th, 2024 at 6 o'clock? Is there a motion from the plan commission to that effect? I'll make that motion. Is there a second to the motion? Second by Commissioner Trustee Milides. Discussion.
Do we have to specify if the accessory building is a basement or no basement?
We haven't.
I mean, would that make it?
Well,
Difference
so
anyway?
the size is just based on the square footage of the living space. So if they had a basement, I mean, for storage purposes.
Well, they say try to hold that way someone's not converting another bedroom downstairs or illegally, or,
Yeah.
something.
Another enforcement issue.
We certainly could say no basements.
I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, I don't know which,
That's an interesting point.
yeah.
This also assumes new construction. We allow conversions for this type of use, would you say? I mean, and that's the other thing to think.
For new
Existing-
constructions, yeah.
So this is only for new construction, not a conversion?
No, I'm saying if someone built a new accessory
Then you
building,
would-
then you would say
okay.
no basement to that.
Yeah, because the couple that I know of, they were garages. People wanted to convert their.
Yeah, above the garage.
Right, or actually get rid of the garage and build a
I
whole
mean, you're
nother.
limited on square footage, so it's kind of nice in the basement for storage, but at the same time, an elderly person's not going to go up downstairs.
Well, right.
You know,
But if it's rented 5 years down the line, and someone moves in and wants to convert the basement to a bedroom, then you're right.
Or a bar.
There's more living
You can
space.
throw in the no basement, you know?
I don't know, I just threw that out there, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
It's a good point, because if you try and get anybody young in there, they're gonna wanna try and put as much junk as they can in there.
Talking about me. My basement is ridiculous. I can't even move.
There's a reason they needed a full bar.
I wish I had space for a full bar.
For the discussion on the motion to set public hearing date from the plan commission, is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye, on this plan commission. Opposed?
Aye.
Maria, did you vote yes or no?
I said yes.
Okay. All of that motion passes. Is there a motion to concur from the village board to set the public hearing for October 10th, 2024, at 6 o'clock? That's by trustee Newman. Second? Trustee Finch?
October 9th, you mean, right?
Yes, October 9th, that's right. Discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I do not have a report, and I just wanted to ask the Plan Commission, if you could, in front of you are some changes to the minutes. If you could get that to Brad, there's even a set of minutes that aren't even on the agenda. If you could, they look like this, and I'll have Brad email them to you, if you could do that. You see these? All these minutes?
A couple corrections over here.
These are
Yeah,
all planning commission ones?
they're all combined, Plan Commission and
Combined.
Village Board.
Okay.
So if you can get those to Brad, that would be great. How to Brad, should they just email you their?
Yeah.
Well, with that, I would entertain a motion from the Plan Commission to adjourn. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
By Commissioner Nowak, is there a second? By Commissioner Rinaldi. Discussion from the Plan Commission on adjournment? None? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Village Board, is there a motion to consider the Village Board? Trustee Peck made that? Pekka? Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Trustee Millies, discussion from the board. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So gentlemen, we'll see you Thursday at 5:30. And Mario, you can't make that meeting, right?
I will be
And,
in the airplane.
and Dan cannot either.
Oh, and Dan, you're not gonna be here either, right?
The 19th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So just Mike.
So it's just Mike and Jeff and I. Okay, guys?
Should be enough.
Thank
Do
you,
you want-
gentlemen.
Do you want me in person in the meeting?
Can you come?
I can be here.
Oh, yeah,